The comet-enhanced Agni Kai in the finale of Avatar: The Last Airbender is, well, technically speaking, it ends with a third-party takedown rather than an outright win, but on the other hand, it is the most beautiful and emotionally resonant fight I think I've ever seen. And in this video we're going to talk about why. Spoiler, the ending is one of the reasons. My name is Jill Bearup, and stage combat, i.e. pretending to fight for stage and screen, is a hobby of mine. So I'm always up for a what you can learn from a character's fighting style discussion, whether that character is played by a real life human or animated. To clarify before everyone jumps into the comment section, too late. The Agni Kai most likely ends the moment Azula tries to shoot Katara with lightning. I couldn't find anything in the Code Duello which specifically said that if you injure a bystander that you forfeit the duel. However, it was considered extremely dishonorable to do so. Involving a third party in a one-on-one duel of honor, really a big no-no. You'd think she was a bad person or something. But, and we'll get to this in a bit, I love how they use the unexpectedness of the ending to hammer home the show's themes of love and friends and choices. Let's talk about some of the other reasons, like how amazing it looks. The colours are gorgeous. The contrasting blue and orange fire blasts are not only beautiful and distinctive in the red saturated landscape, they're really easy to read compared to the average firebending match. And what we read from their comparative size and ferocity to anything we've seen before is A. Comets make firebenders amazing, and B. Zuko is a match for Azula now. From a martial arts technique standpoint, the firebending style that seems to be favoured by the royal family in the Fire Nation is much more sweepy and flowy and pretty than the style used by common or garden firebenders, and so it looks great from that perspective too. Most non-royal firebenders we see have a much more take your horse stance and blast away at them with your kicks and punches kind of approach to things, which definitely makes sense for people who would often fight as part of a small group or in military formation. Contrast Zhao, for example, who only rarely uses his feet to firebend. In fact, in his Agni Kai with Zuko, I don't think I saw him use a kick even once. And while the style of Zuko and Azula's firebending is much more flashy than the average firebender, it's still distinct to each of them, and very indicative of the characters. Which is good, because it's not how it looks or how it sounds that makes this fight so emotionally resonant. It's the backstory that has got us to this point, and the way the fight helps to hammer that home. Azula's style is very graceful, and to this point has always been very precise. She's got her two-finger firebending and her lightning generation, and she is a perfectionist. Her firebending may still be powerful and effective, but she's not balanced anymore. Her style does not require wide stance grounding the way an earthbender or even a regular firebenders would, but to be so agile and nimble you have to be balanced, you have to be centered within yourself, and she's not. And no wonder, honestly. She faces Zuko alone, having spent the time before her coronation banishing everyone who does anything wrong, and also people who haven't done anything wrong and are concerned for her. Her breakdown proper begins a few episodes before, when Mai and then Ty Lee turn against her. And that moment in the prison has broken something very fundamental in Azula in a straw that broke the camel's back kind of way. Her father was only ever concerned with how she reflected on him. Her mother was powerless to stop Ozai's twisting of her personality, and then, to save Zuko's life, her mother had to abandon them both at a young age. Azula is tragic and complex and awful and sympathetic, and she's one of my favourite villains for these reasons. She tries so hard to be perfect, but in the end, even perfect isn't good enough, because there was no one consistently in her life who really cared about her as a person and not just as someone who could help them or make them look good. Her mother had to leave, her father, well, yeah, Zuko at least had Iroh, but Azula had no one. Yeah, I'm not counting those two. Her friends eventually chose Zuko, in Mai's case, or Mai, in Ty Lee's case, over her, and it finished her. And there is no one who can love her and stand up to her, except for Zuko. Because he does love her, even as he knows that she needs to be beaten. This is another reason that it's so poignant and why it sounds the way it does. The fire is quiet. The music isn't climactic. It's all sadness and strings. It's not a victory. It's a tragedy brought on by Ozai, by Azulon, by Sozin. Aang and Ozai's fight is dramatic and eventually at least somewhat triumphant, but this is just sad. It didn't have to be this way, and at least one of the participants is sorry about that. And the other participant, lest we forget, is at most 15 years old. Zuko has to beat Azula, has to take the throne, has to restore the honor of the Fire Nation. And now he can, but he takes no joy in finally getting one over on his sister, because Zuko is the character who grows most through the series. Aang, Katara, Toph, Sokka, they all grow and change and mature during the series, but Zuko is the only one who does a complete 180. Or possibly that should be a 540 because it's a 180, then a 180, then a 180, but for real this time. Never mind. Zuko has found peace with who he is and what his destiny is, and it shows in how he fights. The first time we see Azula and Zuko get into it, we play to Azula's strengths. She's quick, she's agile, she's precise. She lets Zuko attack. She counterattacks with little apparent effort, and then she goes for him with the lightning, which Iroh has to redirect. Zuko wears himself out trying to attack her, but she is just better than him. It never would have worked. When Zuko fights Zhao in the first Agni Kai that we see in the series, Iroh tells him to break his root. But that wouldn't really work against Azula's style, she's too all over the place. We call back to both these fights in the final showdown. This time, Zuko takes root, and Azula cannot break it. That's not to say he never moves. I mean, he does his signature breakdancing spin kick that we saw in his Agni Kai with Zhao, as well as on several other occasions through the series. And of course there are the moves which are reminiscent of the dancing dragon. But while Azula is as maneuverable as ever, Zuko is steady. Everything he has done has led to this moment, going to the Sun Warriors and understanding fire as like the sun inside you, throwing off the shame of being burned and dishonored and disowned by his own father, finding his uncle again, and understanding the tragedy of Azula. He knows her, he sees what has happened to her, he feels sorry for her, and now he can beat her. It's a contrast to the first time we see Zuko and Azula fight. Instead of Zuko wearing himself out trying to hit Azula, it's the other way round. And of course her one-hit KO finishing move isn't going to work here anymore. Now is it?
No lightning today? What's the matter? Afraid I'll redirect it?
Typically, of course, Azula then changes the rules. The first time we see Zuko and Azula fight, it's Iroh who redirects the lightning to save Zuko's life. This time, it's Zuko who redirects the lightning, albeit not as efficiently, to save Katara. Leaving aside for a moment that whole if you injure a third party that's probably instant disqualification thing, we hammer home here how little Azula thinks of people who aren't her. Azula sees people as her father has taught her to see people, as things which can be used and then discarded. Zuko knows setting out that he can't beat Azula alone, and so he brings Katara, who is his friend, whose trust and forgiveness and respect he has earned. Friendship, don't you love it? But then, when he sees his sister, he works out that something has changed. And so instead of teaming up with Katara to take Azula down, he accepts the Agni Kai because he knows this time he can beat her.
And this way, no one else has to get hurt.
Foreshadowing. Katara is there with Zuko because they are friends, because they understand that they are more likely to beat Azula as a team. And so it proves, because Zuko saves Katara from the lightning bolt, but then Katara saves Zuko also. Not to mention that, technically speaking, it's Katara who beats Azula. We see that same ferocity and comet-powered firebending turn on someone who doesn't have enhanced powers right now. And it's close, it's very close, but in the end, Azula is beaten with the power and accuracy that we have come to expect from Master Katara. And so Azula is beaten and broken and crying, and it breaks your heart. Because how much chance did she ever really have to be normal? Zuko breaks with his father, but his father has already broken Azula. In the end, it's teamwork that beats Azula. It's friendship, it's compassion, and it's all there in that final fight. Such a great fight. It's such a great show. If you're interested in analysing movie fights, then may I direct you to my other videos. Thank you to my patrons, as always. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.